Hello everyone. Today I am going to tell you about the Victorian age of English literature. The Victorian age in English literature coincides with the reign of Queen Victoria from 1837 to 1901. Queen Victoria ascended on the throne of England after William IV. The period witnessed many important social and political and economic changes reflected in literature of the time. It can be considered an era of prosperity, political awakening, democratic reforms, industrialization, scientific developments, social unrest, educational expansion, idealism and pessimism, etc. The literature of this period exhibits the spirit of the age in an ebullient way. The age saw two important luminaries looming large and studying the souls of Victorians, Charles Darwin and Karl Marx. Chief characteristics. Well, first, an era of peace, progress, and prosperity. It was an age of peace, progress, and prosperity, though Crimean War affected England, but it couldn't disturb the social fabric. The liberals of the period called for universal peace, justice, and equality. It saw unprecedented development in industrialization, factories multiplied all over England, and remarkable production increased national capital. Great Exhibition of 1851 showcased the mechanical advancement and a sign of prosperity. Second is expansion of education. New educational acts were introduced by government by which to limited degree education became compulsory for all. It increased large reading public. Education caused social and political awakening among masses. Journalism and novel writing flourished. Education Act 1870 proved a milestone in British history. Third is Victorian compromise. It was an age of turbulent social changes. The new democratic, scientific and industrial development shook the very faith of the people, so an effort was made to make a compromise between old and new, between religion and science, progress and stability, peace and order, democracy and aristocracy. Next is social chaos and realism. It is also marked by social unrest. The gap between rich and poor was widening. Capitalists kept on becoming richer, whereas poor were forced to live life of penury. The writers of the age reflected these dark and stark realities in their works. Next is democratic ideals and their advancement. The introduction of Reform Bill checked the supremacy of landed class, and conditions of working class people were taken into consideration and improved. Chartist movement created furor in political spheres. A repeal of Corn Law sent a thrill of improvement in the industry sector. With advancement of democratic and humanitarian ideals, education sector also flourished. The literature of the period also became a tool for the advancement of democracy and humanitarianism. Charles Dickens, Thomas Carlyle, John Ruskin, George Meredith, William Makepeace Thackeray were highly influenced by these ideals, and they exhibited these things in their writings. Next is the impact of science. The progress of science gave impetus and thrust to the progress of democracy. Darwin's evolution theory, philosophies of Wallace and Herbert Spencer, and ideas of Karl Marx stirred the minds of the people. Science influenced every channel of intellectual activities. The scientific method of observation and inquisitiveness affected Lord Tennyson, Matthew Arnold, Robert Browning, etc. The scientific spirit also touched novelists like Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy, Charles Kingsley, Bronte sisters, Herbert Spencer, influenced George Eliot and Elizabeth Gaskell, etc. Next is revival of interest in past. Most of the writers were concerned with current social and political life, but had a fascination towards Middle Ages. The Pre-Raphaelites had romantic thirst for love, beauty and art, and drew inspiration from Middle Ages. John Cabell and Cardinal Newman pioneered religious Oxford movement, which was based on spiritual romanticism. John Cabell gave emotional voice to the movement, and Newman provided its dialectics. Horatio Walter Pater and Oscar Wilde started aesthetic movement, which was a revolt against utilitarianism and pessimism. The chanted art for art's sake. Decadents held that art was superior nature. Important writers and their works. First is poetry. Alfred Lord Tennyson, 1900 to 1992. 1892. The important works are Maud the Arthur, Ulysses, Locksley Hall, In Memoriam, The Princess, Maud and Other Poems, Idylls of the King. Robert Browning, 1812 to 1889. Pippa Passes, Stafford, A Soul's Tragedy were famous plays by him. Bells and Pomegranates, Men and Women, and Dramatic Personae were other great works by him. Matthew Arnold, Rugby Chapel, The Scholar Gypsy, Thesis, The Estate Reveler, and other poems were very famous poems. Collection also came poems and new poems in 1853 and 1867. Pre-Raphaelites, A.C. Swinburne, Tristram and other poems, Songs Before Sunrise, D.J. Rossetti, 1828 to 1882, The Staff and the Script, Sister Helen, Blessed Demoiselle and Eve. William Morris, 1834-1896, The Earthly Paradise, The Life and Death of Jason. Prose. Some important writers of the age are Thomas Carlyle. The famous works are The Life of Schiller, Sartor Resartus, his great work, The History of Frederick II of Prussia, Chartism, Past and Present. Next is John Ruskin. Important works are Modern Painters, The Seven Lamps of Architecture, Sesame and Lilies. T.B. Macaulay, History of England. Matthew Arnold, Essays in Criticism, Culture and Anarchy, Literature and Dogma. Walter Horatio Pater, Studies in History of Renaissance, Imaginary Portraits, Appreciation. R.L. Stevenson, The Amateur Immigrant. Memories and Portraits, The Lantern Bearers. Novel. Well, it is generally called an age of novel and noises. Important novelists of this age are: first is Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist, Christmas Carol, Bleak House, Hard Times, A Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations, David Copperfield, etc. were highly appreciated. Next is William Makepeace Thackeray. The famous novels are The Widower, Adventures of Philip, Vanity Fair, The History of Henry Esmond. George Meredith, The Egoist, Ordeal of Richard Feverel, Diana of Crossways, Thomas Hardy. The Return of the Native, Tess of D'Urbervilles, The Mayor of Casterbridge, Jude the Obscure, A Pair of Blue Eyes, Far from the Madding Crowd, The Woodlanders, The Trumpet Major, Two on a Tower. Charlotte Bronte, one of the sisters of Bronte sisters. Famous works are The Professor, Jane Eyre, Villette and Shirley. Emily Bronte, the famous works are Wuthering Heights. They were all poets as well as novelists. George Eliot, Adam Bede, The Mill of the Flowers. Modern age. Well, this is all in today's video. We will discuss tomorrow about modern age in English literature. Thank you and thank you very much.